Welcome to Addition of Integers 3-1 Part 2, or Part B, whatever I called it. I'm trying to remember where I left off on the last video. I think I did introduce the worksheet, which was posted online, and I think this is where I need to pick up today. If I'm overlapping, I apologize in advance. Okay, so for example 2, Allie borrowed $139 from her parents to purchase an ebook reader. During the first month, she purchased $47 in apps, games, and movies, which was added to the amount she already owed her parents. What integer represents the amount of money Allie had at the end of the first month? The addition expression negative 139 plus negative 47 represents the amount of money Allie had at the end of the month. Now, they want you to get used to using this absolute value method of adding numbers with like signs. Now, they're both negative. So when we add two numbers that have the same sign, we just add them together, all right? But we think about 139 and we think about 47. We kind of don't think about the negatives right now. So we just add those two numbers together and we get 186. But then we go back and we say, hey, would that be a positive or a negative 186? Well, because the original two numbers were negative, this is a negative 186, and they have written it right there. A contestant on a game show has negative 1,500 points. He loses another 750 points. What is his new score? Now you'll notice I put this in parentheses. The parentheses don't do anything, all right? They're just a visual separation. If I didn't have them, the problem would look like this. And you would be wondering, does she mean plus or minus, right? So we use parentheses to visually separate the negative number from the addition sign. Well, because these both have the same sign, you just add them together, which gives you 2250. And because they were both negative, it's a negative 2250. Here we're talking about making math as complicated as possible. We had discussed earlier that opposites are like 4 and negative 4 are opposites, all right? 5 and negative 5 are opposites. Well, now we're going to call them additive inverses, okay? And there's a rule that says additive inverses always add up to 0. Well, of course they do. If you have a negative 7 and a positive 7, it's going to equal 0. They want you to fill in this chart. The first column is your integers, then you have your additive inverses, and then you have your sums. Well, this first little box is pretty easy. If you add a negative 1 to a 1, you get a sum of 0. Now, if I give you the integer 2 and ask you for its additive inverse, you would tell me negative 2. Okay. If I told you the additive inverse was negative 3, you would tell me the integer was 3. They're just opposites, okay? The additive inverse of negative 4 is positive 4. And the additive inverse of, or the integer that leads to the additive inverse of 5 would be negative 5. Okay, we have a hiking trail that begins at an elevation of 150 feet above sea level. It leads down to the shore of the ocean, which has an elevation of 0. So we're starting at like 150 feet, but we're going down to 0, right? What integer represents the change in the elevation? Well, to go from 150 feet to 0, you would have to go down 150 feet, which is negative. So the integer that represents the change in elevation of the trail from beginning to end is negative 150. A puffin is flying at 29 feet, that's my version of a puffin, is flying at 29 feet above ground, or above sea level. How far will it have to go down to reach sea level? What is the number that represents the change in elevation that would be required to go from where it is to sea level? He would have to go down 29 feet. So it would be negative 29. Now we're going to delve into the world of adding two numbers with different signs, which we kind of already did on our worksheet, but they're going to show you how to do it on a number line. The problem they've given you on this one here is 5 plus negative 3. So they started at 0 and they went right 5 because it was positive. Then they added a -3, which means we have to go toward the left because it's negative. We go back 3 spaces and we land right here on +2. So that's why this is equal to +2. We can also use a vertical number line. All right. The problem for this example is -7 plus 1. We start at 0 and we go down 7, and then +1 means we go back up 1, and that lands us at -6, which is the solution to the problem. So here they want us to actually use the number line. They've given us the problem 11 plus -4. We start at 0. Let me change the color on the ink there. We start at 0, and we go right 11 because 11 is positive. So we travel right 11 and stop on 11. But then -4 means we need to go back 4. So we're going to go back 1, 2, 3, 4, which lands us right here, which is the number 7. So 11 plus -4 equals +7. Now, if you were going to use the absolute value method, you go, oh, hey, look, these two numbers are being added together and they have different signs. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the smaller one from the large one. Okay, so you just think of these as 11 and 4 for right now. And you would subtract 11 minus 4, which gives you 7. Now you have to go back and say, which one of these numbers was bigger to begin with? Well, 11 was bigger to begin with. And ask yourself, was it positive or negative? Well, it's because 11 is greater than -4, the sum will have the same sign as the 11. And 11 was positive, so our 7 is positive. Okay. Here we have two numbers with different signs, so we know we need to subtract the smaller one from the larger one. 22 minus 10 gives us 12. And then we have to ask ourselves, is this going to be a +12 or a -12? Well, it's going to be negative because the bigger number was negative, so the leftover two color discs or whatever we're using is going to be negative. All right. Here we have a whale swimming at a depth of 275 feet below sea level. Okay, so that would be -275. After 10 minutes, it rose 194 feet. Well, this one is negative. You would have -275 to indicate how far below sea level the whale was. But then going up 194 feet is a positive motion. Because these two numbers have different signs, we're going to just look at the absolute value. That means we're going to look at the number without the signs. Then we're going to subtract the smaller one from the bigger one, which is what they have done here. And you arrive at 81. But because -275 was bigger than 194 to begin with, our solution is going to be negative. All right, the sum will have the same sign as the -275. So the answer is that the whale will still be 81 feet below sea level. Here we have a thermometer showing an outside temperature of 2 degrees. Welcome to Ohio. That would be a +2 though. Over the next 3 hours, the temperature drops 11 degrees. Which integer represents the thermometer reading in degrees at 8 o'clock? These are two numbers with opposite signs. So we subtract the smaller one from the bigger one. In our brain, we're thinking 11 minus 2 is 9, right? But which number was bigger to begin with? The 11 was bigger to begin with, so the 9 leftovers are negative. The next section, we're going to be adding 3 or more integers, okay? And this is where it gets a little bit tricky here. They're giving you two methods. It varies which one you want to use, but I'll show you both. Method 1, add the numbers in order. So the first thing you would do is you would add this -26 and this +74 together. They have different signs, so you would subtract, and you would arrive at 48. Okay? 48 is positive, though, because 74 was positive and it was bigger. Now we're going to take 48 and we're going to subtract again. This is positive, this is negative. So we subtract 14 from 48 and we get 34. Is it positive 34? Yes, because 48 was positive and 48 was the bigger number. Now, they're saying you could use the commutative property and reorganize this. All right, let's say we want to put the negative numbers next to each other so that we can add them together first, because it's easier to add two numbers with like signs. Well, if we add these two numbers together, we get negative 40. Okay. And then now we just have to go, okay, that's negative, that's positive, so we subtract. 74 minus 40 is 34. And because 74 was the bigger number and it was positive, the answer is 34. Here's a check. You can pause this if you want to try this check by yourself first, or you can let it keep rolling. The first thing I would do is add these first two numbers together. They have different signs, so we subtract. If we take 8 away from 14, we get 6. This would be a negative 6 because 14 was bigger than 8 and 14 was negative. Then we would have to add negative 6 to negative 6. They have like signs, so we just add them together and we get negative 12. Now we have a roller coaster, okay? The roller coaster starts at 43 feet above the ground. It goes up 55 feet, down 80 feet, and then back up 110 feet, all right? So what is the height of the roller coaster at point B? Well, the 43 represents the starting amount above the ground. Upward motion is positive. Downward motion is negative. And upward motion is positive, right? So what do we have for B? Well, let's see. We have 43 plus 55 plus negative 80. That was the only time it was going downhill. All right. So we add these first two numbers together, and that will give us 98. And then 98 and negative 80 have different signs, so we subtract. 98 minus 80 is 18, but it's a positive 18 because 98 was bigger, all right? And now we need to add the 110. So these are both positive. We just add them together and we get 128 feet. The roller coaster is at 128 feet above the ground at this point. We just never seem to run out of examples on this chapter. We have an unmanned submarine is doing tests along the ocean bottom. The following table shows the change in the depth of the submarine each minute for 4 minutes. What is the total change in the depth of the submarine after 4 minutes? Well, to write this out like a math problem, we have a negative 150 at 1 minute, plus a positive 162 at the second minute, and then we have a negative 175 for the third minute, and we have a negative 180 for the fourth minute. Adding the first two numbers together, well, I say adding, but because they have different signs, we are going to subtract them. 160 minus 150 is 12, and it will be a positive 12 because 162 was bigger than 150. Right. All right, our next step would be to combine the 12 with the negative 175. They have different signs, so we're going to subtract 12 from 175, which is going to give us 163 plus negative 180. All right. Did I do that right? Take away that be 3, take away 1. Yes, okay. And now the final problem, these are both negative, so we're just going to add these together. We would get 3. 6 plus 8 is 14, carrier 1. We would get 343 feet, but notice that's a negative 343 feet because both of these were negative. So the total change in depth of the submarine after 4 minutes is negative 343 feet. All right, and that brings us to the practice at the end. I would like you to go ahead and try to do numbers 1 through 10. I'm sure you will see those on an online assignment. But I will not do the online assignment until Friday because I am unfortunately in charge of picture day. Therefore, we can do no math tomorrow. All right. I know subs can't do math, so I don't expect them to. But you go ahead and work on 1 through 10 at the end of the unit there, and then I will film a video explaining how to do the practice on reveal for Friday. All right, have a great night.